This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
When the state of Israel was first formed, so the Prime Minister appointed a man called Zalman Aron, who was a non-religious Jew, as the Minister of Education. He wasn't a very religious person, his wife wasn't also, but she had a tradition to light Shabbos candles every single Erev Shabbos. And the same scenario repeated itself over many, many weeks, that she would daven and she would pray right before the lighting of the candles or right after, whatever it was, that her children should grow up to be as choshev as the people that she knew, which in her life was the Prime Minister of the State of Israel. So every single week she would daven that her children should grow up to be like the Prime Minister of Israel. And it was at that time that the Prime Minister met, famous meeting between Ben Gurion and Chazon Ish, famous meeting, and the Prime Minister Ben Gurion came back from the meeting and he was astonished. And he had a cabinet meeting with all of his people, and one of the people sitting there was this Zalman Aron, the Minister of Education, and he was saying, I want to tell you, I met someone like a malach. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I've never met a human being that was a malach. This is what he was describing over the Chazon Ish to all of his people in the cabinet meeting. So this man, Zalman Aron, goes back to his wife and says, you should hear what the Prime Minister was talking about this man, Chazon Ish, and some old man in the middle of Bnei Brak that all the Haredi Jews go after as such an unbelievable person that he never met anyone like it in his life. That Erev Shabbos, that Friday night, right before the lighting of the candles, his wife changed from her regular custom of davening that her children become the greatest man that she knows, which is the Prime Minister. And she said, well, if the Prime Minister is so impressed with this old man in Bnei Brak, who I have no idea who this is, I'm also impressed by him. And she davened from then onwards that her children should be as great as this man called the Chazon Ish. Her grandson said over the story many years after it happened, who is now a Rosh Kollel in Yerushalayim, and Zoyach to spread Torah in Klal Yisrael. Why? Because of the Tefilah, because of the davening of his grandmother by the Shabbos candles. We spoke about last week the inyan of Tefilah, how choshev Tefilah is, the koyach, the power of davening. I want to continue to a little bit on the same theme, to understand and give a little bit of an understanding more into what is Tefilah. How much does it accomplish? How much are we accomplishing every single time we open up a siddur and we daven? How much we can actually accomplish? There was a Maisa in Lakewood Yeshiva, BMG, where, if anyone knows, the first day of the Zman is, they have a whole tumult with chavrusas. This one's looking for that chavrusa, this one's asking that one. It's like a whole balagan. Everyone's asking everyone for a chavrusa. It's the first day of this man. That's how it works. Everyone's busy running around looking for a chavrusa and hoping to find the best chavrusa that he possibly can. One particular boy, not the best boy, a good average student, always managed to find the best chavrusa, and nobody could understand why. How does this boy always manage every single Zman the same story? Everyone's looking at chavrusa, they do manage, they don't manage, but this guy always manages. So they found, on the first day of this Zman, they found him walking around, asking very good Bochum, better than himself, for a chavrusa, and the Bochum said yes. They're trying to follow him around. What exactly is his secret? What is he doing? What is he doing that he manages to always manage to get the best chavrusa? Until they found, after he managed to get 3 different people, morning, afternoon, and evening, he went over to the payphone. And he picked up the phone and he called a number. So they're listening to see, maybe they can find some kind of secret to who he's calling, that the secret to his success of always finding the best chavrusa. And they overheard him saying, all right, Mom, you can stop saying Tehillim, I found myself a chavrusa. He understood that the only way for him to get what he needed was through Tefilah. And that is something which we're trying to work on as well. That Tefilah can accomplish the most amazing things. A Yid is in Soros, a Yid is not in Soros, a Yid needs something, whatever it may be. There's only one place that we can turn, and that is to the Rabbeinu Shalom in Tefilah. There's a very interesting survey that was done. It's actually printed in a Southern Medical Journal. So the study goes as follows. There was a Dr. Radolf Bayred, a staff cardiologist at the University of California Medical School. He studied 393 patients that were admitted to the care unit of the San Francisco General Hospital. 393 patients that were in the hospital. All the patients were given the best state-of-the-art treatment that they could possibly get. In addition to this, half of these, it was 393 patients, so half of these patients at random were prayed for by prayer groups around the United States, and none of the doctors or nurses or people in the medical staff knew who was being prayed for and who was not being prayed for. So you have a group of 393 people, all of them patients in the hospital, and they're doing a study on all of them, taking the results. Half of them were being prayed for by groups around the United States, and the other half were not. The results, and again this is printed in the Southern Medical Journal, the results highly favored the prayed for patients who had fewer deaths, fewer instances of resuscitation, less need for breathing machines, and less need for antibiotics, and fewer instances of problem with lungs filled with fluid. According to one of the doctors in a study made in Atlantis, the Imaginary newsletter, the outcome was so significant that if the method being investigated had been a new drug or surgery technique, it would undoubtedly have been heralded as a scientific breakthrough. Even Dr. William Nolan, the author of Making of a Surgeon, and noted skeptic of the subject of praying, acknowledged the importance of the study, saying that physicians should perhaps be writing on their orders, pray for the patient 3 times a day. Even these goyim understood, with research done, that if someone is prayed for, he has a higher chance of living. He has a higher chance of surviving. Prayer is that which accomplishes absolutely everything that it possibly can. The Mishnah in Masechtas Makkos Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph tells us that the mothers of the Kohanim, Kohen Gadol, that were in the situation of, as we know, the people that would by mistake kill someone, were sent to the Arei Miklot, and they would remain there until the Kohen Gadol died. So the mother of the Kohen Gadol, says the Mishnah, would actually provide food, clothing, packages of presents to people there so that they should be happy there. She didn't want them to daven that her children, her son, the Kohen Gadol, would be nifta. And therefore tells us the Mishnah, she dafka gave presents to people in order that they should be happy, they should be okay in the Arei Miklot, not that they should daven that the Kohen Gadol dies in order for them to get out. The Sforim note, isn't it unbelievable? She had to give presents for what? So that they wouldn't daven that a Kohen Gadol would die? That's the power of Tefilah. The power of Tefilah can accomplish absolutely everything, and we don't realize it. One of the Misharim that the Sforim bring is if you have a wealthy man who owns a tremendous amount of money, millions, billions of dollars, even he can't walk into the bank and take out anything without a check, without a card. He needs something to prove. He needs something to take out the money. So they bring down the same thing. There's so much bracha in all of our lives. There's so much that the Rebbeinu Shalom wants to give us, but we just have to daven. As we spoke out last week, from Parashas Bereishis, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has prepared everything for us. Hashem wants to give us everything, but we just have to ask for it. You just have to ask. You just have to daven for it. That's all it is. They went to the Brisker Rov, and they asked him, they heard him saying Kriya Shema. Now when the Brisker Rov said Kriya Shema, it was a Kriya Shema. Every word was beautifully pronounced, slowly, and meticulously. It was unbelievable. So I went up to him and said, Rebbe, do we have to really do that? Is the halacha is that you have to say it like that? If it is, then we'll also do it. If it's not, so why do you do it? So the Brisker Rov answered the following. He said, let me ask you a question. Imagine you're walking down the street and you have some money. Do you check that money every single time you walk in the street to make sure it's still there? So the guy said, no, not really. So he said, tell me, ask you a question. Let's say you have $1 million of cash in that pocket. You're walking down the street. Would you check your pocket every moment down the road? He said, yeah, $1 million, 100%. I check every second. He said, the Brisker Rov, every single word of Tefilah is worth so much that I'm just checking it. I'm counting it. I'm making sure it's pronounced properly. Because he understood what the koyach of Tefilah is. He understood what Tefilah can do. Rabbeinu Bechayes is the most unbelievable thing in this week's parasha. We know that Yitzchak davened tremendously. He davened tremendously because his wife Rivka was barren, as the Posek tells us in Perek Chof Hey in Bereshis, Posek Chof Aleph. Vayeta Yitzchak LaHashem. Yitzchak davened L'noichach ishti ki akori, because she was barren. She couldn't have children. Yitzchak wanted to have children, so he davened. Asked Rabbeinu Bechaya the following question. It's the wrong way round. He didn't daven because she was barren. It's because she was barren, that's why he davened. Why does the Posek say that Yitzchak davened because she was barren? It should be the other way around. Because she was barren, he had to daven. Says Rabbeinu Bechaya an unbelievable thing. Rabbeinu Bechaya says, and it's a Gemara Mefurish in Yevamos Samach Daladom and Beis, says the Gemara Omer Rabbi Yitzchak, Mipnei ma hoyu avoseinu akum. Why? The reason is that we found that our avos, Aimois, they were barren, they couldn't have children, they had to wait years and years to have children. What was the reason? Says the Gemara in Yevamos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted their Tefilah. It was exactly the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu made them barren, is because he wanted Yitzchak to daven. It wasn't the other way around, that Yitzchak daven because they were barren. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it that way so that they would daven. I'll bring you a mashal. I had a Baldira, someone that I rented my apartment from for a number of years, and it was a very choshev yid. But it used to, what can I do? It used to annoy me that every single month on the day, he would call me up and say, have you got my money? It's like the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. I'll get it to you. Don't worry, I have it. I'll sort it out. Like every month on the dot. Now, he didn't do anything wrong. He was perfectly entitled to do that. It just bothered me. So I had a great Eitzah. I collected together 3 months of rent, and I gave it to him. I said, here you go, Koltov. This way you don't have to bother me for 3 months. The Rebbeinu Shalom could do the same thing to us. Can say, hey, you want everything? No problem. I'll give you everything that you need. I'll give you all brachas, I'll give you atzlacha, I'll give you parnas, I'll give you shalom bayis, I'll give you good children. Just leave me alone. Or HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I want the relationship. I want a connection. I want you to talk to me. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes situations in our life where we have to daven, where we feel we want to daven. That exactly, as Chazal are telling us over here, is the reason why sometimes people go through situations where they feel they have to daven. It's not because they're going through a bad situation, that's why they're davening. It's exactly HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants your davening, he wants your tefillah, he wants the connection. That's why he puts you in that situation. And we don't realize the koyach of tefillah. Let me just end tonight with one amazing, amazing story. There was a couple in Eretz Yisrael that were unfortunately not zoicha to have children. They weren't merited with children. It's been already almost 10 years. They're waiting for a child. They tried this scholar, they tried this Rov, they tried that Tzaddik. Nothing was going. It just wasn't happening. So someone told them, why don't you go and visit Rav Shimshon Pinkus in Ofakim? Go visit Rav Pinkus. He's known to give a tremendous brachas. He's known to have eitzes. So I said, sure, can't lose. So they go traveling, the husband travels there in the afternoon, knocks on Rav Pinkus' door, and Rav Pinkus answers, Shalom Aleichem, what can I do for you? So they sit down, and he tells them the terrible story. Been married almost 10 years, no children. Maybe you can help me. So Rav Pinkus is thinking about it, and he's saying, no problem. Do me a favor. Come back tonight at 2 o'clock in the morning. So what? Just trust me. I'll help you then. Come back at 2 o'clock in the morning. So man thinks, I'll do anything for a child, no problem. If a Pinkus tells me to come back at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll come back at 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning, he knocks on the door, a Pinkus answers, Gavaldik, I was waiting for you. Let's get in the car. Where are we going? What's going on over here? But he listens to instructions, and there he is. Rav Pinkus gets in the car, he gets in the car as well next to him. They're traveling, and they get to a place in the middle of nowhere, a desert, complete darkness, nothing there. Rav Pinkus stops the car, switches off the lights. You can barely see a thing. You can barely see your own face. It's so dark. He gets out and he says, listen here. It's you and the Rebbeinu Shalom. Daven like you've never davened before for a child. I'll be back in half an hour. Gets in the car and zooms off. And the man thinks to himself, not much of a choice, do I? So he starts davening and he really feels it, and he's thinking about the years and years that his wife was waiting for a child, and all the emotions start coming out, and he's davening. All of a sudden, the lights come, Rav Pinkus' car is back. Amazing. Rav Pinkus gives a look at him and says, I don't see the tears. I need real emotion. It's only you and the Rebbeinu Shalom here. There's nobody else. Talk to Hashem like you've never talked before. I'll be back in a few minutes. And he goes, and this man said the tears were streaming down his face as he was talking to the Rebbeinu Shalom in a Tefilah. Mamish, as Tefilah, as if you talked to somebody else, he was talking, there was no one else around, it was pitch darkness. And he came back, and as the story is told over, a true story, 10 months later, he was zocheh to have a child. Because when a person talks to the Rebbeinu Shalom, when a person understands the koyach of his tefillah, when a person understands the strength that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave every single one of us, that when we open up our siddur, we have the opportunity to talk to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and hopefully we'll take it a little bit differently. And the mitzvah Shem will continue in the coming weeks, going through various other inyanim in tefillah. Have a good night.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.